Welcome back to the home stretch of the reading section. You are doing an incredible job. As you continue your route, take a deep breath and realize how much mental ground you have covered. You are now a more strategic reader than 90% of the people taking this test. We are closing out the reading portion of the exam with Module ACC RD 4.1, Determining the Meaning of Words and Phrases. This module is often called Vocabulary in Context, but I want you to erase the word vocabulary from your mind right now. On the Accuplacer, this is not a vocabulary test. It is not a test of how many big, fancy words you have memorized from a dictionary. If it were just a dictionary test, it would be easy. Instead, this is a logic test. The test makers are going to give you a word, sometimes a very simple word you use every day, and they are going to ask you what it means in the specific context of the passage. The most important thing you need to hear is this. The most common definition of the word is almost never the correct answer. Let me say that again, because it is the secret to a top score. On the Accuplacer, the famous meaning of a word is usually a trap. The test makers want to see if you can ignore what you think the word means and look at how the author is actually using it in the sentence. Let us look at a deep example. Imagine you see a sentence that says, "The young athlete's performance was so impressive that it began to eclipse the achievements of her veteran teammates." The question asks, as used in the sentence, what does the word eclipse most nearly mean? Your brain hears the word eclipse and immediately thinks about the moon, the sun, and darkness. One of the answer choices will definitely be to darken or to block the sun. If you are rushing, you will pick that answer because it is the dictionary definition you know. But look at the sentence again. Is the athlete literally blocking the sun? No, she is performing better than her teammates. In this specific context, eclipse means to outshine or to surpass. The athlete's success made the others look less significant by comparison. To beat this module, you must become a context detective. You are looking for the clues that the author left in the surrounding sentences. There are 4 specific types of clues that the Accuplacer uses to hide the answer in plain sight. The first type is the synonym clue. This is when the author uses the difficult word and then in the same sentence or the next one uses a much simpler word that means the same thing. They often connect them with the word and, for example, the professor's lecture was incredibly verbose and wordy, leaving the students exhausted. Even if you have never heard the word verbose, the word and acts like an equal sign. If the lecture was verbose and wordy, then verbose must mean wordy. The second type is the antonym clue. This is the opposite. The author uses a word like but, however, or despite to show a contrast. For example, unlike his gregarious sister, who loved being the center of attention at parties, Mark was shy and preferred to stay home alone. The word unlike tells you that Mark and his sister are opposites. If Mark is shy and prefers to be alone, then his sister must be the opposite of that. Therefore, gregarious must mean social or outgoing. The answer was right there in the sentence, hidden behind the word unlike. The third type is the example clue. This is when the author gives you a list of things that describe the word. For example, the storage shed was filled with provisions, such as canned beans, bottled water, blankets, and flashlights. The phrase, such as, is a gift from the author. It tells you exactly what provisions are. They are supplies or necessities. The fourth type is the inference clue. This is the hardest one. There is no and or but to help you. You have to use your common sense to figure out the vibe of the situation. For example, after the team lost their 10th game in a row, the atmosphere in the locker room was somber. You use your logic here. If a team just lost 10 games in a row, are they happy? No. Are they excited? No, they are probably sad, quiet, and serious. Therefore, somber must mean gloomy or serious. Now let us talk about the traps of knowledge. As a mail carrier, you are an intelligent adult. You know a lot of words. But on this test, your own knowledge can be a liability if you aren't careful. One major trap is the secondary meaning trap. The Accuplacer loves to use words that have 2 very different meanings. Take the word table. You know a table is a piece of furniture, but in an academic passage, an author might say, the committee decided to table the discussion until the next meeting. In this context, Table doesn't mean furniture. It is a verb that means to postpone or to put aside. If you see the word furniture in the answer choices, it is a trap. Another example is the word plastic. You think of a water bottle, but in a science passage, an author might talk about the plastic nature of the human brain. They don't mean your brain is made of Tupperware. They are using the scientific definition of plastic, which means flexible or capable of being molded. So, how do you find the right answer every single time on Tuesday? You are going to use a technique I call the blank space method. When you see a question that asks for the meaning of a word, I want you to look at the sentence on the screen and mentally delete the word. Put a blank line where the word used to be. Then, read the whole paragraph with that blank space. Ask yourself, if I were the author, what simple word would I put in that blank? Let's try it. The sentence is, the hikers were exhausted after their arduous climb up the mountain. Now delete arduous. The hikers were exhausted after their climb up the mountain. What word fits? Maybe difficult or tiring or hard. Now look at the answer choices. Choice A, high. Choice B, cold. Choice C, difficult. Choice D, famous. Since your own word was difficult, choice C is the obvious winner. By picking your own word before you look at the test's choices, you prevent the test makers from confusing you with their trap definitions. Another high-level tip for your audio learning: pay attention to the connotation or the emotional charge of the word. Is it a plus word or a minus word? If the sentence says, the diplomat was known for his shrewd business tactics, you have to decide if shrewd is a good thing or a bad thing. If the diplomat is successful and respected, shrewd is probably a plus word, meaning clever or sharp. If the diplomat is described as a liar and a cheat, shrewd might be a minus word, meaning sneaky or calculating. Matching the plus or minus of the word to the plus or minus of the answer choices will help you eliminate at least 2 wrong answers instantly. Finally, watch out for visual traps. These are words that look or sound like the word in the question but have totally different meanings. For example, if the word is ingenious, which means clever, the trap answer might be ingenuous, which means innocent and naive. Or if the word is adverse, which means harmful, the trap answer might be averse, which means strong dislike. These are meant to catch students who are skim reading. But since you have unlimited time, you are going to read every letter of every word. To summarize this final module of the reading section, first, remember that the most common definition is usually a trap. Second, use the blank space method to predict the meaning before you look at the choices. Third, look for the 4 types of context clues: synonyms and antonyms, but examples such as, and inference the vibe. Fourth, be on high alert for secondary meanings of simple words like table, plastic, or base. And fifth, use the connotation test to see if the word is positive or negative. Congratulations! You have officially completed the deep dive preparation for the Accuplacer reading exam. If you apply these strategies, reading the question first, hunting for evidence, ignoring your outside knowledge, and using the blank space trick, you are going to see a score that will make Hudson Valley Community College very impressed. Take a moment to celebrate. You've just finished the first major leg of your journey. But don't get too comfortable, we have a whole new world to conquer: the writing section. In the writing section, we shift from being a reader to being an editor. We are going to look at grammar, punctuation, and how to make sentences clearer. Whenever you are ready to start the writing portion of your training, starting with module ACCWR 1.1, proposition, just say the word, writing, and we will begin.